Hi, this is Ruth Theresa with One Inspiring Woman, and I am so excited for y'all to join me for Thursday Night Live. I'm with my friend Michelle.
Hello, everyone.
And we're going to be talking about really some best ways to begin, kind of like your spiritual journey, maybe your new age journey, whatever you would like to call that, kind of like some great questions. Now, I've been on the path for quite a while, so that's kind of like, I've kind of done a lot of things, but Michelle is not a newbie, but a much newer person. And so we're going to talk about some of the things that she learned right off the bat, kind of like things that we can talk about, different ideas and suggestions, and I know it will be helping you as well. So, what's your first question, Miss Michelle?
So starting the spiritual journey, I would say one of the most difficult things for me has been learning to, first of all, understand what I'm feeling, because I'm an empath, so I didn't understand what that was even about.
Mm-hmm.
So being overwhelmed, and then also meditation has been a big thing for me, and getting into it, trying to stay focused. So anything around meditation, I would love some tips and tricks.
So the first off, I will tell you that most empathic people under the realm of being clairsensitive have a lot of issues, because when we kind of start opening to start feeling things from the other side, a lot of times we don't realize that we're empathically bringing through other people's energy. So like we're angry, and then we're talking to someone else who's angry, and now we're double angry, and we don't understand why. We're like, and they're like, you're taking this to a crazy level, or they're happy and you're happy, and now you're like jumping off the windows and stuff like that. It's like, what the heck? We have to understand that a lot of times, like, not only are we connecting to our energy, but we're connecting to other people's energy as well. So that can be quite overwhelming when you first start opening up to it. Now, I will tell you, probably the best answer for that is to learn how to body test. Body test is like, literally, when I teach Psychic 101, Class 1, Lesson 1, body testing. Like, it is the basics of the basics. Now, I will have my 101, 202, 303, and 404 classes, like, they all know how to body test, and they'll literally ask me a question. I'm like, well, body test it. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, it is the basics. It's going to give you usually that immediate answer. It's not going to give you the full answer, but it's going to probably give you that next step. So it's kind of like that basic way of understanding, where do I go from here? How do I deal with this part? So I will say that's kind of the number one. Now, a lot of people have issues with meditation, and meditation isn't easy. And one of the things I try to explain to people is, like, when you start meditating, it's like if we decided to go get ready for a marathon. We are not going to just put on our tennis shoes right now and walk out the door and go run 26 miles.
Right.
Not going to happen. The thing is, though, is meditation is the same way. Meditation is learning how to speed up part of your energy and slow down part of it. So most people think, like, oh, because you're sitting still, your energy is really slow. Your inner energy is doing freaking marathon. Your outer energy is like, chill out. So does that make sense? So
yes.
Normally we're like mentally like, I've got to do this, I've got to go there, I forgot to pick up bread, I need to do this, I need to go to the dry cleaners, I need to, whatever it is, like all of those mental things. And our spiritual side is like, I'm napping here. So when we meditate, what we're doing is we're turning off that mental side for a period of time and amping up our spiritual side. And so that's where we kind of get like, what? And it's not been training. It's not been doing anything. It's been kind of, like I said, binge watching TV all for years. And so now we're asking it to do something, and it can be overwhelming at times. And it's like, oh, this is weird. So I often tell people, when you first start to meditate 3 to 5 minutes.
That was my next question.
Like 3 to 5 minutes at the most. And I was like, and sometimes I tell people, like, maybe 3 minutes is too long. Maybe it's a minute. Maybe
But the point is you started.
You-
That is the
you
most
start-
important.
Okay, so if you were just going to barely start meditation, what I would say is, like, if you're having issues, go back and just take 5 deep breaths. Literally just,
You can do that all throughout the day. That was one of the
Right.
most important things
Like-
I did when I started.
and then I tell people, like, do it at different lengths, different times during the day. Because otherwise you've taught your body is like, I'm only going to exercise for this period of time and nothing else do you need to do. That's kind of harsh for your system. So do 1 minute in the morning, maybe, and 2 minutes at lunch, and maybe 3 in the afternoon, and then the next day kind of break it up. I'm going to do 3 minutes in the morning, like, so I'm going to switch it out a little bit for me and kind of bring it up to a little different, so my body's not expecting the same thing all the time.
Well, and I think a lot of people just automatically assume they can't do it because they can't do it for 20 minutes. So I think that's a very valid point that you start somewhere.
You
Just
start
somewhere.
slow. The other thing is, most people cannot handle holding still or sitting in the lotus position. I can't even get in the lotus position. I have like knee issues. I'm just like, my body is like, you want me to do what? So I will tell people, when you're going to meditate, there's a couple of things to keep in mind.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the most comfortable chair in your house,
Mm-hmm.
where you feel completely secure. I don't care if it's on the floor, in the bedroom, in the back of the closet, like, I don't care where it is. That's where you're going to meditate.
I like that.
So be very, very comfy. Now, at the same time, I don't like to meditate sitting up. I like to lay down.
See,
So
that's
I'd
another
rather
thing.
lay down, like, if nothing else, I'll go lay down on my bed and meditate. Now, sometimes if I'm kind of like, just like a little overwhelmed, I may, like, in the living room, kind of just close my eyes for a few moments and kind of just meditate there. But if I feel like, man, I really need to relax and chill things out, I'm going to go lay down in my bed.
Well, I've even during business meetings, like if I'm just feeling overwhelmed because of being an empath and picking up the energy of the room, I will just start breathing to myself because nobody knows what you're doing. You're just breathing. You don't have to close your eyes. You don't have to do all these things. You just breathe.
Right. So the best way to start breathing is breathing from your nose
Mm-hmm.
to your belly button. And I know your breath, I know your lungs are not in your belly button region, but what I'm saying is you want to be able to put your hand over your belly button and breathe so your belly button is moving. That's how deep you want to breathe. So it's
And you can do that anytime. Even in
If
the
you
most
don't-
crazy moments.
in
Nobody
the
will
craziest
know.
moments, you can do it. And so that's kind of one of those, like, yes, this will work. Anytime. A few moments. I've done it, like, literally gone to the bathroom at places and, like, I'm a little overwhelmed, everything's coming at me.
Right.
Like, literally just like, I'm going to relax here. So doing meditation throughout the day will really, really help. Now, I will say, when you start doing, like, a little bit longer meditations, start with, like I said, 3 to 5 minutes. If you can't do 3 to 5 minutes, start at like 1 minute or 5 breaths, and when you get to like the 5 to 7 minute, you'll be able to find some meditations online that are easy to do, that sort of thing. I always, like, my number one hint is listen to them first. Don't just assume that because the guy who was telling you about the meditation, you trusted him. My thing is, because I'm empathic as well, I'm really cautious about people's words. So if I listen to it first, I'll be like, I don't like that word. I'm going to find someone else. There's too many meditations out there. And my students know that, like, once they're used to my energy and doing meditations with me, I'm like, don't just do mine. Do other people. So You're not just like, I can only meditate to Ruth. No. You don't need to be just one person. Like, meditate to several different ones so that you can kind of like open up to that energy and really just like, yes, I've got this. That will make things go so much easier and so much kinder on your system. Let me see.
Thoughts on candles? I used candles to help me focus at first. What are your thoughts on that?
Candles can, but it just depends on you. If you like candles, one of my friends many years ago said I couldn't be a psychic without having candles. So I thought it was so funny. She was just like, every psychic I've ever known has had lots of candles. So, but it's one of those, like, I like ones that have a fragrance that's calming and relaxing. So I love that calming and relaxing energy. But it really depends on what resonates with you. My preference would be to turn on incense, light a couple of incense.
Essential oils was another one I was thinking.
Essential oils can be really well, and you can do them in kind of different aromatic ways and stuff like that. And even just having them open near you can do that as well. Just kind of like relaxing, and knowing that some fragrances or scents will trigger you in different areas.
I think that's very helpful. And then what about stones? Let's stones do we use?
So I think the stones that are thrown at most people when they start is rose quartz and amethyst and quartz crystals and stuff like that. And not that those are not amazing energies, but I will tell you, let's go back to body testing. Go find the one that just like draws your energy to it. And now I'm really cautious when I go to a place and they have like a bin full of stones, because a lot of people like stick their hands in there and like digging through it. I will kind of like, okay, which stone is calling my name? If this is the bucket that's showing where I need to be, and I'm going to pick out the one stone that's calling my name. The one that's going like, yeah, that's for me. And then I'm going to body test it too. Okay. So I'm going to make sure that that stone likes me as much as I like it. Okay. Because we're going to start a relationship together.
That's a good point.
Okay. It's like, and stones have many different things that they can help with, heal with, work with, all of those things. It's not just like one thing and that's it. Many stones can, like, many of them have like 10 or 20 multiple different uses and multiple different things they can heal and help with this and help with that. So there are some amazing ones. So stones is one that I really, really like, but I will also tell people, don't just like look up the stone that you have. If you buy one somewhere, like take a picture of the label, and then when you go home, like, how do I cleanse this stone? Because
it's a big deal.
There's some crazy ones, and it's one of those, I've ruined stones before because someone said, oh, you can do it in salt, and it ruined the whole stone. Some of the other ones, it's like, I didn't really care for it. It didn't really cleanse the energy as much as I thought it could or should. So that's kind of one of those like interesting things of like, you do want to try some different stones, but making sure that like, okay, this has to be cleansed this way and this has to be cleansed that way.
Well, and like some of my stones are really like soft and smooth, other ones are not, so I know you have to be really careful with how you clean those. And then, but there's different ways, because some of them you can use water. I think the moon cycle definitely affects them. Like, how do you figure out all of that? Like, that's a lot.
So a lot of people will say like, put your stones in the moonlight, and you know, that sort of thing. To me, it's like,
or sage, putting sage over
you can do sage on several of them. I will say kind of the moon one is like the one that people misuse the most, because is the moon in the right sign? If the moon is in a sign that you don't like, you're like, I freaking hate Sagittarius. Every person I've ever known that's a Sagittarius, or every person I've ever known that's a Virgo, or every person I've ever known, like whatever that is, if the moon is in that sign, freaking don't do it. Just
so you need to pay attention to the signs.
You need to pay attention to the signs. Okay? So does that make sense?
It does
make sense.
Because
like I had a client that not too long ago, and she was the one who was saying like Sagittarius, like my ex-husband was in a Sagittarius, and then my mother-in-law was, and she was just like, I just hate them. And I was like, they just have an energy that doesn't mix well with yours. Doesn't mean that they're bad, just means that they're not mixing well with your energy. So you want to make sure that you never cleanse a stone in moon energy.
You really have to figure out what that energy is of that moon.
Yes.
So how, like, what's the best, like, as somebody who knows nothing about moons really, other than I know there's a full moon and a new moon, how do I figure out what it's in?
Okay, so even just saying like new moon and full moon, okay? The new moon is about new,
right?
Beginnings, new starts,
right?
New moon.
Okay.
A full moon is about releasing and letting go of. So those are just like the basics. A new moon is about new starts, new beginnings. A full moon is about releasing and letting go of. Okay. So if you're trying to cleanse your stone, you're trying to release energy from your stone that's caught in. So you want to do it the day before the full moon, the day of the full moon, and the day after the full moon. It's going to be out there for 3 days.
That's very important. I did not know
You want to make sure that wherever it is, it's going to like be in that pocket or whatever else, where it's going to get like 4 to 6 hours of moonlight on it.
Okay, so my apartment, the way it is, there's no actual moonlight that hits it. So then what should I do?
What about where you park your car?
Out front, maybe it would be out there. Ooh, but stuff in your car.
Does that make sense? It would clean out, like it wouldn't stay in your car. It would be released to the moon. The moon would like vacuum it out.
I mean, but putting stones in my car, like I wouldn't want anybody to steal my stones.
You'd only do it at night. Put them in there at night. You know what I'm saying? But my thing is like, but you want to make sure that like, or is there a place in your apartment complex where you could kind of put them under a tree
that I would trust.
That you would. I'm just
No, these are great because this is one of the things the last full moon, there was no moonlight on my porch. So I'm like, well, how am I going to do this?
And now I would say, like, if it's coming through a tree, it's okay. But if it's being blocked by a building, that's really going to affect the energy. But if it's being blocked by a tree, I wouldn't worry about it too much.
No, I would definitely say it's blocked by the building because I always pay attention to where it is.
Like where it is so that's kind of like, now the best way to do it now, if you don't have direct moonlight on it, I would put it out like 2 or 3 days before the full moon and like, leave it for longer. Or you could do, cleanse it a little bit differently. Instead of in moonlight, you could do something different. But my thing is research your stones, like know your stones, not just like someone else told you this and maybe they're wrong. I would look it up.
And I probably have hundreds of stones, so there's that too.
I have lots of stones, but I will tell you, kind of like I put them in different categories. Like this is better cleansed this way. This is better cleansed in sage or even incense. So it's one of those like, and a lot of them don't necessarily require like super cleanse. Sometimes it's just like it needs to be rinsed off in water and used again.
That's it.
Like it doesn't have to always be like this deep down, like spring clean this thing. It can be just like, let's wipe it off a little bit.
Now, how about cleansing my own energy though with the full moon? If I want to do a salt bath, you have some fabulous salts.
I have some fabulous salts, and so
I know personally
you can use salt, and I would do it. Most likely, I would do it like depending on when the moon goes like full into that full sign. I would do it like a few hours before that, if possible.
Okay.
If it, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's 8 o'clock in the morning, and so then I would have done it the night before. You know what I'm saying? So I would be kind of like
based on what it is.
When it is. So I'm kind of like when the moon is at full release mode, I'm at full release mode. Kind of like when it's in full gear, I'm in full gear, ready for this to release.
Okay. Good to know. And then for the new moon, same thing? Like writing intentions?
I would be writing intentions. I would be, what are my new intentions for the next 30 or 28 days of the moon cycle? So kind of like, what are the new things? Almost like a little mini goal session. We normally only do that in like December or January, like,
yes,
goals for the year. So it's kind of like that. This is kind of like, am I on track?
Okay.
Like, and what's the next? Is there a new step? Is there a new part that I need to come in now? I was doing this. What's the next part?
Okay.
So that can be a little helpful to kind of like move things along as well.
Okay, and we're in Mercury retrograde right now. So tell us about that.
Mercury in retrograde. So one of the big things to understand about planetary energy is understanding each planet has its own energy. Okay? So it's going to have a generic energy. So Mercury is our planet of communication. All communication.
Right.
Face-to-face communication, over the phone communication, text messaging, emailing, direct, like every bit of communication is going to be affected by Mercury in retrograde. Okay? So a lot of people, when you say Mercury in retrograde, they're like, ah! Mercury in retrograde is highlighting, literally putting a light on where you can improve.
Okay.
Not where someone else can improve or anything else. So when you have an issue with communication in Mercury in retrograde, you should be thinking like, so Ruth and I had a miscommunication about what time we were going to start. And it's not a major thing. So I need to make sure that I'm clearing things up. Does that make sense? Like, I thought this time, you thought that time, and that's okay. We should have corrected you. Does that make sense? Like,
absolutely.
And sometimes I'll just text people like, I'm just confirming our appointment for whatever time. And so just double checking. Does that make sense? And so that's for both of us. Like, this is where we can do better. Not like, oh my gosh, you're horrible. This is where we require clearing up. So in the future, we don't have the same issue.
Absolutely.
We may have other issues, then we can clear that up as well. So it's not like, oh my gosh, that's horrible. It's one of those. But when you have miscommunications, it's showing you, highlighting where you have an issue.
So you can fix them.
Now, let's put Mercury into a sign.
Yeah.
Okay? Because each sign that the planet is in, it's one of those, it's aligning differently. So right now, Mercury is in the sign of Virgo.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Virgos are detail-oriented. They are organizers. They love to get on task. They're detailed, like those sort of things. So things where we're going to clear up our communication are also going to be detail oriented. Getting on a schedule, getting things on the calendar, maybe even organizing your closet. Does that make sense? Like that's what's going to come up during this time frame. And problems in this area are going to highlight like, oh, this is where you need to clean this up.
That's very interesting. And being that Virgo and Pisces are like directly across each other, does that affect anything?
It does, only if you have Pisces in a very strong part in your chart.
Okay.
Does it make sense? So like that's, and it can pull a, you know what I'm saying, crossways. Then you kind of get more into the astrology of it and out of the psychic part of it.
Gotcha.
And not that they commingle a lot in many different areas. And then there's somewhere it's kind of like, no, that's astrology and this is psychic work.
Got you. Okay. Very interesting.
But I think that's kind of one of the fun things about every planet really goes into retrograde for a period of time. Some of them go into retrograde for longer periods, some of them are shorter periods, and it just really depends on how fast they kind of race around the sun. And so it's kind of one of those, each one has a theme or an idea, and then add that idea of the energy of that planet along with the sign that it's in. That's going to tell you where things are going to come up.
Interesting.